The first warning came as silence. On Virelio's prime, silence meant danger. The city world never truly slept. Its sky was a lattice of traffic lanes and drifting platforms, its streets alive with layered sound from a dozen species breathing, clicking, humming, or pulsing their way through daily survival. When everything went quiet, it meant the enforcers had arrived. Jalen Cross felt it before he heard it. The air shifted. The crowd stiffened. Conversations died mid-syllable. Even the neon advertisements dimmed, their algorithms sensing instability. Jalen stopped walking. Across the plaza, a circle had formed. At its center stood a Karath war-matriarch. She was enormous, even by Karath standards. Nearly 3 meters tall, armored in overlapping plates of obsidian black chitin veined with crimson light. 4 legs rooted her to the ground, while 2 upper limbs ended in bladed extensions sharp enough to slice hull steel. Her lower arms flexed, claws digging grooves into the stone. She was about to strike. Beneath her shadow knelt a smaller figure, barely visible from where Jalen stood. A traitor, by the looks of it. Thin, bipedal, soft-skinned. One of the low-tier species that barely registered in coalition threat assessments. Its hands were raised, trembling, its translator implant sputtering apologies in half a dozen languages. The Karath matriarch did not listen. Her compound eyes burned brighter as she drew one bladed limb back. Karath justice was swift, public, and final. On Virelio's prime, the coalition allowed it. Karath controlled the military routes. Their customs were considered non-negotiable. The crowd watched, some with fascination, some with fear, most with indifference. Jalen felt his stomach tighten. He was human, which meant 2 things in the coalition. First, no one expected much from him. Second, if he interfered, the consequences would be severe. He took a breath. He thought of Earth, distant and fractured, of the old stories about humans stepping between monsters and the helpless. He had always assumed those stories were exaggerated, romanticized. Then the Karath matriarch roared. The sound vibrated through bone and pavement alike. Her arm came down in a lethal arc, and Jalen Cross took 1 step forward. Stop. The word was small, fragile, spoken in a human voice that cracked under the weight of the moment. The blade froze inches from the kneeling traitor's head. Every eye in the plaza turned toward Jalen. The Karath matriarch's gaze snapped to him, compound eyes narrowing. Human, her translator boomed. This does not concern you. Jalen swallowed. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure others could hear it. It does now. A ripple moved through the crowd. Whispers in a dozen frequencies. The matriarch straightened to her full height. This being violated Karath trade law. The penalty is death. Jalen nodded slowly. Then fine me. Detain me. But if you're going to kill someone here today, you'll have to go through me first. The plaza erupted. Shock signatures flared. Security drones surged closer, weapons primed but uncertain. Humans were not protected species, but they were unpredictable. Coalition algorithms struggled with them. The traitor stared up at Jalen, eyes wide with disbelief. The Karath matriarch laughed. It was a terrible sound, like metal tearing. You're soft. You are breakable. You think your body is a shield. No, Jalen said honestly. I think my choice is. He stepped closer, placing himself fully between the blade and the traitor. He could feel the heat radiating from the Karath's armor, smell the sharp, electric tang of her biology. Every instinct screamed at him to run. He didn't. The matriarch's blade hovered above his head now. Why? She demanded. There is no honor in this. No gain. Jalen thought of 100 answers and discarded them all. Because if everyone keeps watching, he said quietly, then nothing ever changes. For a long moment, the universe held its breath. Then something unexpected happened. The Karath matriarch hesitated. It was subtle, a micro-delay in her neural glow, a fractional recalculation. Karath were warriors, but they were also strategists. Humans, according to coalition data, were weak. But they were also infamous for one thing. They did not always act in their own interest. You would die, she said. Yeah, Jalen replied. I know. Silence stretched. The matriarch slowly lowered her blade. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This one's life is forfeit, she said, gesturing to the traitor. But you have complicated the equation, human. She leaned down until her eyes were level with Jalen's face. If I kill you, the coalition will respond. Not because you matter, but because your kind is inconvenient. Jalen met her gaze. His legs shook, but he didn't move. Then let him go. The matriarch straightened. Leave, she commanded the traitor. The traitor did not hesitate. It scrambled to its feet and vanished into the crowd, sobbing. The Karath matriarch turned back to Jalen. You have interfered with Karath justice. This debt is not forgotten. I figured, Jalen said. She stepped past him, her massive form retreating as enforcers parted to let her through. The plaza's sound slowly returned, conversations exploding all at once. Jalen stood there, heart racing, hands trembling. He was still alive. That was when the consequences began. Within hours, his face was everywhere. Coalition feeds replayed the footage from 1,000 angles. Human interferes in Karath execution. Unarmed species blocks war-matriarch. Emotional instability or moral courage. Opinions divided sharply. Some called him reckless. Others called him a fool. A few called him dangerous. And some called him brave. Jalen was summoned before a coalition ethics panel within the cycle. The chamber was vast, filled with beings who represented entire civilizations. Light beings, hive minds, silicon elders, avian jurists. Jalen stood alone at the center, feeling smaller than he ever had. You disrupted a lawful execution, intoned the presider. Yes, Jalen said. You endangered interspecies stability. Yes. Why? Jalen took a breath. Because someone was about to die, and everyone else decided that was acceptable. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A Karath life outweighs that of a minor traitor, another voice said. According to whose math? Jalen asked. Silence. He continued, emboldened by the fact that he had already faced death once. You built a galaxy on balance sheets and deterrence. But balance doesn't mean justice. And deterrence doesn't mean mercy. The presider studied him. You are asking us to change. No, Jalen said. I'm showing you what happens if you don't. The Karath matriarch appeared via hololink. You spared the traitor, the presider said. Why? Her mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Because the human disrupted certainty. He introduced risk. Explain. If I had killed him, she said, his species would not have accepted it as final. Humans escalate emotionally. They destabilize systems. Letting the traitor go was efficient. Jalen almost laughed. The ruling came shortly after. Jalen was censured. Fined. Barred from Karath-controlled sectors. He was also something else. Protected. A new clause was quietly added to coalition law, civil interposition rights. Any sapient being could place themselves between enforcer and accused, forcing review. No one expected it to be used. Then it was. On a mining moon. On a border station. On a refugee transport. Again and again, someone stepped forward. Not always human. Jalen became a symbol he never asked to be. He traveled now, invited and escorted, teaching mediation not with lectures but with presence. He showed up.
He stood between.
Years later, he encountered the war-matriarch again, on a neutral world. "You altered probability," she told him. "My people study your action now." "And?" Jalen asked. "And we have learned," she said, "that restraint can be a weapon." Jalen smiled. "Told you." As he walked away, he passed a small crowd forming around a heated argument. Tension rose. Voices sharpened. Then someone stepped forward. Not tall, not strong, just willing. And the strike never came. Because once a human had taken one step forward. And the galaxy remembered. The galaxy did not change overnight. It never did. But change, Jalen learned, did not need speed to be inevitable. Years passed after Virilio's prime. The footage of a single human stepping forward aged into history, then into doctrine, then into something quieter and more dangerous. Expectation. Where once crowds watched executions with detached certainty, now hesitation crept in. Enforcers paused. Matriarchs recalculated. Councils reviewed outcomes instead of assuming them. And sometimes someone stepped forward. Jalen became older in the way travelers do. Lines carved themselves around his eyes, not from fear, but from focus. He no longer wore neutral clothing. He wore simple human garments, unmistakable, almost symbolic. When people saw him enter space, tension shifted. Not because he was powerful, because he was known. On a dust-veiled moon near the Coalition's outer rim, Jalen stood at the edge of a settlement watching a Karath patrol escort a group of detainees. One of them, a young avian merchant, stumbled. A Karath enforcer raised a blade in irritation. Before Jalen could move, someone else did. A short, scaled being stepped into the path. Not human, not strong, just present. The enforcer stopped. Jalen exhaled slowly. He had worried, once, that his actions would turn him into a legend people admired but never imitated. Instead, they had become something far more unsettling to power, a precedent. Later that night, under a sky crowded with unfamiliar stars, Jalen received a message. It was from the war-matriarch. "You altered our future," it read. "Not by defying us, but by forcing us to see ourselves reflected in you." Jalen smiled faintly and closed the message. He had not meant to teach the galaxy anything. He had only meant to stop one blade. But perhaps that was how change always began. Not with armies or revolutions, but with a single body placed where violence expected nothing but emptiness. As Jalen boarded his ship, he looked back at the settlement. At the mingling species, at the fragile, imperfect peace. He knew there would be more strikes, more moments where fear and power collided. But now, there would also be steps forward. And sometimes, that would be enough. The engines hummed to life, carrying him onward. Somewhere ahead, someone would be about to strike. And someone else would remember what a human once did. And the galaxy, just for a moment, would pee.